Hi everyone, it's Henry, and this is a kind of mad, impulsive video that I've put together in response to a couple of videos I've watched this afternoon. And I'm kind of responding to initially a video made by Big Lee, Big Lee of Big Lee's Miniature Adventures, who's got a regular YouTube thing going on, which was then also responded to by Alex Sotheran, who's got his own Storm of Steel channel on YouTube. Both of them are really good at what they do. Let me say that for a start. And both of them, in their kind of little exchange, had some really interesting things to say. And of course, they're coming to it from a very different perspective from me. I have to make it clear that I'm kind of in the business, aren't I? Because back in 2006, I did something stupid like launching a magazine. Here we go. Shall I give it a flash? That was issue number 1. That ran from 2006 to 2011 under my own steam, and it then got taken over by Atlantic Publishers after a very scary moment when I had a massive financial crisis. It was taken over by Atlantic Publishers, who were also the publishers of Miniature Wargames, of course, at the time. And then in 2013, they asked me to redesign and merge the two magazines. And this is what emerged: Miniature Wargames with Battlegames. This was actually the last issue that I edited, because at the end of 2015, I said enough, because it got taken over by Atlantic Publishers in 2015. And so by the end of 2016, I was kind of like, oh, I've had enough of this. And then various things happened in my life, won't bore you. And I sort of came back from that in 2018, I think it was, thinking, wow, what do I do? I don't want to start another magazine, but I quite enjoy kind of bringing stuff together and being in the public eye and that kind of stuff. So I started my own Patreon, which has now been running for, well, I suppose 5 years or so, hasn't it? Now being nearly the end of October in 2023. So there's that background that I've had. So I've kind of been running my own businesses in the hobby, my own publishing businesses in the hobby. And then, of course, you will also know, and I won't bore you with all the details, that there's a little row of books behind me. Can you see there? Which way do I point my finger? That way. That reflects what I've been doing also alongside that. So there was the Wargaming Compendium in 2013, Wargaming Campaigns last year, 2022, Tabletop Battle Tactics came out earlier this year, and then most recently the Martinstadt 1744 book, the green one. Because everyone's saying, where's the green one, Henry? So I did a green one. So I've done both traditional and self-publishing. And so what I've actually done is I've put together, I can't believe I've done this. I've put together a bit of a, well, most of you probably think of it as a PowerPoint presentation. I'm actually on Apple Mac, so it's a keynote presentation to talk about ways that you can earn money from your hobby. One of the things I wanted to say first, kind of philosophically, a philosophical point, I suppose, because Big Lee, bless his heart, is very much, there's nothing, let me say, there's nothing amateur about what Big Lee does. He's a lovely bloke. What he does extremely well. The videos he puts together, he spends ages kind of editing them, and they've got titles and subtitles popping up, and he obviously thinks about what can he cram into. What is it? They're short, aren't they? 10 or 15 minutes. And he does an extremely good job. And this is where I agree with Alex's response to Lee's initial video, which is, Lee, mate, if your videos are popular enough that you could earn a few quid from YouTube because of the numbers that they're attracting, the views that they're attracting, do it, my dear friend. I think that there's it's a very British thing, isn't it? It's almost an embarrassment to earn money from stuff that you do that you're good at. And as Alex said, mate, YouTube are going to be earning money off your videos anyway themselves, big bad corporation, if you like. So if they're offering you, and it's only a pittance that they offer, I know this through other people I've talked to, like Troy, Sonic Sledgehammer. Hello, Troy, who runs his own fabulous online painting video thing on YouTube with many, many thousands of visitors. If there's a few quid on offer, Lee, that you could put towards just your own hobby, or an occasional night out with your missus, take it. There's nothing sinful about earning money from something that you're good at and that other people appreciate. Because it's not even as if the people visiting YouTube are physically handing over cash. Although some people, there is the option to actually subscribe to YouTube now to avoid all advertisements. But, the vast majority of us go over to YouTube and watch all this amazing stuff. Yes, we're subjected to a few ads, but we kind of get used to them. We're inured to those, aren't we? So, Lee, my dear fella, don't be shy about accepting a few quid when it's on offer. Now, I'm going to be talking about quite a number of different ways that you can earn money from your hobby, ranging from a few quid here or there to actually, becoming a serious business enterprise. And we'll look at the various things. I'm not going to go into vast detail about any of them, but I just wanted to kind of talk about the variety of ways that are now on offer to earn some money from your hobby. But of course, there's no compulsion here. If you want to keep your hobby just as a hobby, and there are many good reasons for doing so, then that's absolutely fine. But the reality is, in today's world, and I'm actually a good example of this, times have been tough. None of us are getting any younger. Many of us, myself included, have been through some serious, indeed life-threatening illnesses, and they can have a pretty catastrophic effect on your cash flow, your household cash flow, on your ability to earn money through normal channels like having a proper job and that kind of stuff. And we're all having to be more flexible about how we earn money. Petrol's getting more expensive. Running a house is more expensive. Interest rates are high. The cost of borrowing is high. If you've got any kind of debt at all. Just running a house now is very expensive. Electricity and gas prices. The cost of food. Inflation has been very high. I don't think I need to go on, do I? And so I think nowadays we all need to feel that it's more acceptable to diversify our portfolio, as anyone with financial expertise would say. Don't be shy about, if you can earn an extra crust by doing something extra, in the same way as you might get an extra job going down the supermarket stacking shelves. If you can earn a few quid by providing something that's related to the hobby, but which is of value to other people, and only they can define what that value is, and we'll talk about that, then there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing morally wrong with earning money from stuff you're good at and that other people are interested in. Full stop. Okay? Right. Now, let's have a look at the slideshow and see where we go from here. I haven't done any fancy music. Music is available, but I've done no music in the background of this. So those of you who like to be lulled to sleep by background music, bad luck. Right. Okay. So let's have a look. Okay. Right. Ways of earning money in the hobby. Let's start off with one of the earliest ways that we earned money. Back in the day, lots of people started blogging, didn't we? There was Google's Blogger, a lot of people used. WordPress, and that's the direction I took. I mean, because I actually started blogging back in 1998, before it was called blogging, way before it was called blogging, when it was just called, oh, Henry's got a website about wargaming, and that website happened to be called Battlegames. 18th of June, Waterloo Day, 1998. That's when I started. But within a few years, more people came on board and would, and things like WordPress and Blogger became available to make it much easier for people to effectively, do an online journal of their hobby. Writing about and taking pictures of figures they'd painted and so on and so forth. All in the days before, of course, social media came on board. And we'll talk about social media in a minute. And essentially and now there's new platforms as well, like Wix and Substack and many, many others. These are just a few examples. But WordPress is still very popular, and so is Blogger, actually. But the opportunities of monetizing your website / blog back in the early days were very, very limited. I can remember when someone actually approached me about placing an ad on my Battlegames website. I was blown away. It was like, wow, really? But, for people who were doing wargame stuff, there weren't many options back then. And I also placed some kind of like small personal ads, a bit, just for, the kind of stuff that people would now just put on eBay saying, oh, I've got some figures for sale, or, oh yes, the Crawley Club meets on Tuesday nights, or whatever it is. Those were the days. And learning to create and upload rotating banner ads and that kind of stuff. Wow, that takes me back. Didn't earn a lot from it, but it helped cover my hosting costs. So essentially, a load of people, a few of us started doing blogs, and obviously the miniatures page was another early contender back in those days. But gradually, more and more individual gamers thought, oh, actually, I'll have a go at that. Why not? Fair enough. And then that kind of grew like Topsy. And a lot of the early blog posts, because I remember, I kind of felt like, oh gosh, if I'm going to do this, it needs to be sort of a bit of an essay, really. And a lot of early blog posts were really quite long. They were like magazine articles online, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 words with, a dozen photos or whatever. And of course, back then we had, because the internet was so slow, we had to make sure that those images we compressed right down using JPEG or GIF compression. Those were the days. I've got a certain fondness of that kind of thing. But the opportunities to actually make money doing it were low to non-existent, I would say. And that's still the case. It's very difficult to, you can use Google AdSense. And I've tried that with my Battlegames website / blog. I've used Google AdSense. And over the course of the year, I'll pay for a book or two, not a lot. But more than that, my concern has been that the Google AdSense ads, how relevant are they really to primarily historical miniatures gamers? Actually choosing the advertisers is quite a complex business, and you have to monitor it. And there's a lot of stuff on there that's kind of peripheral to what we do. So video games and occasionally some paint manufacturers or whatever. But I felt like the interference quotient, the way it would interfere with someone just being able to read my blog became greater than any value derived either to me in terms of monetary comeback or to my visitors. Because I know my tolerance level, if I'm reading a blog post and blooming Google AdSense ads keep popping up, bluntly, I give up. And I thought, well, if that's how I feel about that, that's probably how most of my visitors are feeling. And if you go, with things like WordPress, you can get really gritty statistics about how long people are spending on your site and so on and so forth. And, if the stats are telling you people aren't spending more than a few minutes on your site, that's probably because they're thinking, oh, God, I can't be bothered to slog past all these ads to read what would otherwise be an interesting article. So that's the blogging side of things. Then there's social media came along, and obviously we all know what they are. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, they're all under Meta now, aren't they? Yes, the site formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, which huge numbers of us are kind of tearing our hair out about at the moment. And then those other places that many of us have kind of started migrating to just in case Twitter X collapses in a cloud of smoke. Places like Mastodon, Blue Sky. I happen to favour Blue Sky, and it looks like that's picking up in popularity. It kind of is reminding me of early Twitter. It's still in fairly early stages of development and could do with some more functionality. It could do with some direct messaging stuff and other features that Twitter has had before, frankly, Twitter/X. I think we should almost be calling it Twitter/XXX, shouldn't we? Because the prevalence of ghastly porn bots and that kind of stuff, and suggested posts that are popping up in your timeline that are full of stuff that, I really don't want to know about this, and way too much politics. And obviously at the moment with world events the way they are, there's some pretty nasty stuff flying around. Blue Sky is starting to look like a kind of a relatively safe haven for most of us. I gather that people who are into kind of more tech stuff are liking Mastodon, but because of its different server structure and stuff, I'll be honest, I struggle to get my head around it, so I've kind of pulled back from that. Facebook used to be, I used to quite like Facebook until it all became Meta. And when I've actually got several pages on there, I've got my Battlegames page, I've got my Henry Hyde Writer page, I've got a Shot, Steel and Stone page, and they were quite fun to run. But now Meta's they've tried to shove everything into, now you've got a Meta business page, which basically just seems to duplicate everything and make stuff more complicated. And it's no longer as easy to reach the people I want to reach. All these things are at the mercy of algorithms, but it's become more annoying than it used to be. But obviously there is now a vast number of wargaming related groups on Facebook. So it's a good place to be if you've got specific interests. And if you've got the energy and time to think, right, well, if I get involved with that group, that will help me to promote the stuff I'm doing. Well, good luck to you. But I think for all of us, and this is one of the things that, the theme of this is time's of the essence, isn't it? Most of us have got much more limited time than we used to have. So we're having to be more choosy about how thinly we spread ourselves and where we spend our time, which is one of the big gripes about what's happening with Twitter, because I've been there for 12, 13 years, long time, and have built up a following there well over 4,000 people. And suddenly it's become a nightmare. So almost feeling like one's forced to migrate to these other platforms and start from scratch again that's painful. But anyway, the social media, the other thing is, it's not easy to directly earn money from just being on these social media things. Yes, Facebook has got its Facebook shop thing, so you can sell stuff there, and there are various groups you can buy and sell through and what have you. But effectively, there's almost like a glorified eBay, or it's not a way to consistently earn money. You can advertise on the Meta platforms, which I'll include Instagram. Instagram's kind of nice. It's just got irritating more lately because Meta's decided to start pushing the fact that it's also got threads. So you're scrolling through your Instagram feed and suddenly there's an advert saying, oh, look, there's this stuff happening on threads as well, which is, oh, really? What a bore. They're cross-promoting their things. You can advertise, but again, advertising on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, it's a bit hit and miss. It's a bit scattergun. Blue Sky, at the moment, one of the glories of it, there's no advertising there, which is lovely. Whether that will continue, we'll wait and see. Anyway, that's kind of social media. So there are limited opportunities to earn money via social media, though probably the best way to use it is to support your other money-making activities, particularly if you're a business. So you will see people like the wonderful Annie. Hello, Annie of Bad Squiddo Games and stuff. You will see her popping up on social media to support her Bad Squiddo business. And she's very, very good at it. So that, and over the years, obviously, having a Battlegames page on Facebook has helped me to promote what I was doing with Battlegames, and briefly when I was running Miniature Wargames. And it's also helped me, obviously, bluntly, these platforms have helped me to promote my books. And the support I've got there is fantastic. But as I say, that's social media is good at helping you to support your other activities rather than being a money-making route in themselves. Okay. Video, and this of course is where Big Lee and Alex and Troy, and many others of you out there, you're fantastic at the YouTube. I'll focus on YouTube in particular, though you can also earn money and set up paid channels and stuff on Vimeo. And of course, TikTok is the latest explosion in the video world, which I'm going to be completely honest with you, I cannot get my head around. And I think the fact is, of course, it's not aimed at my age group. I'm 62 now. It's kind of aimed at people who are 40 or 50 years my junior, right? With the kind of attention span that likes that. No, melts my brain, TikTok, but it's there. And again, I can say that there are certain businesses who are finding that by doing stuff on TikTok, it helps to promote, support stuff they're doing elsewhere. But it's not my cup of tea. But YouTube and Vimeo to a certain extent, certainly are smack bang in the middle of our demographic. And say people like Big Lee, people like Alex and others, and Little Wars TV, my goodness me, and all that. Fantastic. There's a huge variety of gaming videos out there on YouTube. And yes, if you've got a large enough support base and enough views, you can earn, you'd have to be getting, I think, hundreds of thousands of views and more in order to be earning, that's a nice paycheck every month. Right? But certainly if you're getting into the thousands, and certainly the multiples of thousands of views, that's very nice. It's certainly, that's a nice bit of hobby money. And if you're doing well enough, it could even become what the Americans would call a side hustle, an additional income stream that's not to be sniffed at. And however, Alex pointed out something. And in the process of making this today, the point is proved again. If you want to do it properly and create something that's not just rubbish, it's very time consuming. I mean, for this video, I've selected some images. I've made a title that you saw there, title page and background pages, and I've put together this keynote presentation thing with the text on it. And I will obviously be checking the whole thing afterwards for any blips and blobs and stuff. So the whole thing, take the amount of time you appear on screen and multiply that by, say, 3, maybe 4. When you're podcasting, as I know, and we'll talk a bit about that, putting a podcast together, I know that whatever the original recording time was, I have to spend at least the same amount of time again, even if it's a clean recording, going through and listening. So doing the recording, then listening to the whole thing again, and then doing any cleanups, coughs and scrapes and squeaky chairs. Oh my God, some of the nightmares I've had over the years. And then, putting together the show notes about it, and then, uploading it and promoting and all that. It's time consuming. So don't think that a 15-minute video that Lee does is just 15 minutes. No, because you kind of, bless his heart, I think he's probably forgetting about the fact that having made it, there's then all the uploading thing, and there's doing all the stuff on YouTube to say, oh yes, has it got any copyright content and all the rest of it? Who's it suitable for? And does it contain any adult imagery? And then, okay, so that's done. Oh, and then going and telling people on Twitter, on Facebook, on wherever, that, hey, my video exists, because there's no point recording and uploading a video and then just telling no one that it exists, right? So it's time consuming. And obviously the same would be true of anything, Vimeo. I mean, TikTok tend to be much, much shorter, kind of little few minutes things, but all the same, there's, when you look at the and I have in certain spheres, I'm quite interested in psychologies, and there's a few videos I've watched on TikTok and they've really thought about a really good, punchy, compressed script, which takes time, and the background that they're sitting in front of, rather than just some blurry thing. There's work involved, right? And so deriving an income, as I say, direct from YouTube, however, is hard. You'd have to be, you're competing against, let's face it, millions of other videos out there. And what you get paid, as Alex points out, YouTube has really, really tightened up on how much it pays to whom. And so don't expect that, unless you're one of these 1 in a million cases where suddenly something you do goes viral, it's a slog. So you need to, almost a bit like blogging, one of the ways I got into the groove doing my Battlegames website back in the day was I started to see the blogging as part of my hobby. Right. And I think that's how a lot of us see the social media as well. It's part of the hobby. We might even be sitting there doing something, painting or whatever, or taking some pictures, and then having a bit of a chat on Twitter for a few minutes, a couple of times a day. It's part of our hobby. And I think unless you're really keen to become a video producer, editor, that's how you have to kind of see doing stuff for YouTube. It's part of your hobby. Anyway, what's next? How else can you make money? Well, this way you actually can make money. Sell stuff. And I've listed eBay, Amazon, because many people don't realize you can sell stuff, particularly books, obviously, via Amazon. That is, books you've bought previously, you can resell them on Amazon. Go check it out. And ABE Books is another well-known site, particularly for kind of vintage rare books, that kind of stuff. So that's a direct way of, you could say, making money. In a sense, really, for this, it's almost like recouping money. You bought stuff, so you're now selling it second hand, so you're getting back some of the money you originally spent. If you're lucky, something that you've hung on to might have rarity value, like all my badly perished Spencer Smiths are bound to sell for a fortune, right? But mostly it's recouping money that you originally spent. Okay. Excuse me. Buy, pile of books, or here's this battalion of French voltigeurs, 28mm Perry miniatures that I don't want anymore, or I've bought something else instead, so I'm going to sell them on eBay. And we often see people, don't we, there's groups on Facebook announcing, hey, this is my latest ebook eBay listing, or on Twitter I've seen people like Gareth, hi Gareth, and others saying, oh yeah, I've done this thing, and they're going to go on eBay. If anyone wants to make me a sensible offer before I put it on eBay, drop me a message, right? And that's another way of doing it. That is where you could use social media as a way of getting rid of your unwanted stuff. Is just to say, look, I'm going to be putting this on eBay, but if someone makes me a sensible offer, okay, you get first dibs at it, right? And if you've got old books that, I had all those Ospreys for that project, never going to look at them again. There are routes to market, because sadly, old-fashioned second-hand bookshops are kind of rare now. Brighton where I am, used to be stuffed full of old second-hand bookshops where you could go and barter with the guy and say, look, how much would you give me for these? But now, they've gone. I suppose boot sales, if you can be bothered to stand in the rain in a field for an afternoon, or usually a morning, isn't it? There's boot sales. But, the civilized version of that is eBay. And I used to do a lot of eBaying, haven't so much recently, because the other thing is, again, it can be quite a lot of effort for not necessarily much return. Which is why a lot of people just, hey, does anyone want this stuff? Or swap stuff with their mates, or go down the club and say, look, if anyone wants any of this, just quid, right? Whatever. But yes, that is a legitimate and more predictable way of earning some money from stuff you've already got. The next step, of course, is to actually make stuff to sell on eBay or Etsy or Amazon, or as I do, my digital products via PayHip or Shopify. And there are many, many, many shopping type website things are available. Shopify, I've just given as one example. Okay. And of course, nowadays, the thing that I'm going to, hey, look, lots of people, not lots, quite a few people are now doing 3D printing stuff. There's some, hi Paul Edwards, just a name plucked out of mid here. There are others, so, but just someone I've seen quite regularly being mentioned on Twitter X, for example, Paul Edwards, who's become a very skilled 3D printing guy. And people are prepared to pay him for his stuff, either by commissioning directly, or where, because I bought Dungeons and Dragons stuff off Etsy. There are people out there who will produce a set of 3D printed townsfolk or mad mythical animals or furniture or whatever it happens to be, that they then sell via their own little Etsy shop. Now, I know, because I'm thinking, is it Hi Tiny Wargames? Etsy's been problematic for some sellers recently, so proceed with caution. They've decided that they are going to keep a certain amount of your money on hold, as it were, until it hits a certain amount before they'll pay it out. That's, I think, the kind of thing that happens, which obviously can be crippling for a very small micro business that's actually relying on that money. And this is where I have to, this is kind of where we're hitting that shift point between being an amateur who just sells some stuff because, oh, look, I don't need those ancient Romans anymore. Or, oh, blimey, I'm never going to use those Anglo-Saxon houses again. So bung them on eBay. And here we've made the transition between you actually becoming a micro business, right? You're actually now a business. Even if it's not your entire income, you've made the transition from being just an amateur who just flogs off some old stuff to I'm making new stuff and selling it. Now that stuff might be, as I say, 3D printed stuff. You might be painting miniatures. You might be making scenic stuff, right? Houses, trees, fortifications, whatever, right? But you are bringing something new into the world, let me put it that way, and you are selling that. It might, even if you're just in your own name still, oh, it's Henry Hyde selling me that thing. You are now a business. You have made that step from being just an amateur, getting rid of stuff, to being a business. And this is an important step, okay? Because you need to take it more seriously, because what you earn from doing that is taxable. Selling secondhand stuff, your own secondhand stuff, isn't, okay? Because as I say, that's just kind of you're recouping some of your earlier outlay. As soon as you start making and selling stuff, you're a business. And even if it's just a sole trading business, you need to declare what you're earning and you'll be taxed above a threshold, depending on what else you're earning and what the tax thresholds are and, wherever you live and that kind of stuff. But you are potentially liable for tax. Also, in amongst this, probably earlier on, even if you're just selling stuff on eBay or whatever, you've probably already opened a PayPal account or something of that kind. And if you actually start creating and selling stuff, other options are available as well, such as Stripe is another payment system. Obviously, you could also potentially take credit card payments, that kind of stuff. Now, you can also take credit card payments via PayPal, but you might want to take Visa, MasterCard, Amex, whatever, in their own right, which already is making your life more complicated because the management of those systems requires a learning curve, and there are costs associated with it. As soon as you start taking payments via these mediums, they will take a charge. So you might say, aha, I've got £100 for that thing. Oh, no, actually, because eBay's taken a chunk and PayPal's taken a chunk. Now, that may be in total less than 10%, but it's still, 3, 5, 7, 10% of the retail price, if you like, that you're not getting. And then what's left, the profit, you're going to get taxed on. Okay? So effectively, stick, let's say 25% in total aside to cover the tax as well. Ideally, but cash flow's a funny thing. Let's not go there. Anyway, so that's the next step, is to actually earn money by creating and selling stuff. Something else you can do. You can write for magazines. Man, I used to run magazines. Magazine editors are always desperate for good stuff. If you can string together a healthy sentence and accompany your article with well-lit, in focus, nicely composed photographs, you will be loved forevermore by your local magazine editor, right? Other magazines exist worldwide, but Britain still dominates, doesn't it? So Wargames Illustrated, Wargames Soldiers and Strategy, and Miniature Wargames, they're the big three. And other titles in the States, for example, have come and gone, sadly. It's a funny thing. Let's not get into that debate. I've already had that debate elsewhere. But the big three magazines, particularly the monthlies, so Dan at Wargames Illustrated, John at Miniature Wargames, and Guy and Jasper at Wargames Soldiers and Strategy, they're always on the lookout for well-written articles ranging from, I don't know, 1,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 words, depending on what your subject is. Or I would say, don't send in articles just speculatively. Send an email or ping them on social media, because they're all out there, and say, look, I've got an idea for an article about this. It would be about that long. I can provide half a dozen photographs. Would you be interested? Okay. It's very rare. Don't write to a magazine editor and say, what do you want me to write about? Because they're like, oh, God, that's not my job to tell you what to write about. That's your job. Your job is to write something or come up with an idea, approach me with the idea, and let me go, oh, yeah, that sounds good. How about 2,000 words, right? You might even, if you can do it, say, I've got an idea for a series. And what magazine editors really love is you can say, and I've already written the first 3 in the series of 6, let's say. Because what's horrible for a magazine editor is if you approach them saying, oh, I've got an idea for a series. Here's installment 1. And then they're waiting for, tapping their fingers for installment 2. And you go, oh, I've got a cold, or you know, the rabbit died. Can't do it. They're like, really? So be reliable, meet deadlines, and, you know, you don't have to be Shakespeare. Because there's a clue here. Magazine editors are really good at editing articles. Their job is to make you look good because they want the magazine to look good. So if you've got a bit squirrely on your grammar there, they'll sort that out. However, please God, use a spell checker, right? Something else I want to say, because of the modern world. Do not send in articles that are entirely written by ChatGPT or other artificial intelligence software. That is grossly unethical. Don't do it. Okay? That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. Next, and a favourite of mine, of course, and Alex, Patreon. Based on the old-fashioned, 17th, 18th century idea of having patrons who pay you money to do what you do best. And this is where I'm going to be blunt and say, if you don't already have a following from another source or sources, Patreon is probably not for you. Now, I'm lucky. I've got about an average, because it fluctuates, about 250 patrons. And I'm hoping to pick up some more, because Patreon have just done this thing where actually, and this might be news for you folks, you can come along and be one of my patrons for free. You get a free trial. Effectively, what that means is you get to see the unpaid stuff that I put out. This will be one of them, actually, because I'm going to put this out publicly. You get to see the unpaid stuff along with the rest of my patrons. Okay, so you get early dibs at it for free, and you can have a look, and then if you feel like dipping your toe in with, a couple of quid a month or whatever, go ahead. But I've got that many followers, and I'm a tiny minnow in the Patreon world. There are people out there in the, the video game world, the music world, and other things, video creation, who have many thousands of patrons paying them many, many, many thousands of dollars every month. Sometimes many hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. I wish. No, I'm completely open. I put on my front page, right, this is what I earn every month. I'm completely open about it. Because I think this is one of the other things, the theme that go back to what Lee was talking about in his video, bless him. I think there's this British discomfort about talking about money, about revealing how much you earn, that kind of stuff. In my case, I'm completely public. It's on, I don't know what the exact figure is. It's on the front page of my website, $1,000 a month, something like that, is what I earn from my Patreon. Which is almost a reverse psychology, to prove to you guys, I'm not rolling in money from my Patreon. I'm extremely grateful for that money. That money every month means that I can continue to be involved in the hobby producing stuff, which bluntly, if I didn't have the Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do. I'd have to just go back to being a guy who's got this wargaming hobby. I would not be able to afford, for all kinds of reasons, right? And everyone's different and everyone's circumstances are different. But I would not be able to afford to do things like this if it wasn't for the support I get through Patreon, right? And so people who join the Patreon, it's up to them. They might go, yeah, all right, I'll give you a couple of quid a month, Henry. I have a series of ranks like $5, $10, $25, $50 a month, whatever they are. So, and some people, not huge numbers, but a significant number of people are supporting me very, very generously. And I'm phenomenally grateful for that. But I don't expect that to be very many people. And the vast majority of people dip their toes in at like the, what is it, $3, £2.50 a month level. And sometimes some of them, bless your hearts, have hung around for a very long time. And other people go, oh, yeah, it's not really my thing. Or, oh, actually, there's this other person's stuff is more my thing. You know, for all kinds of reasons. Maybe it can be because times are difficult. People might go, not sure I can afford to do this. And Henry's a lovely guy, but I can't afford to do that anymore because the electricity bill's just gone up, right? Or they might go, do you know what? I might want to support someone like Alex Sotheran, bless him, who, for example, does a great deal more World War II stuff than I do because he's more into that period. He does 15 mil as well. So 15 mil, definitely not my thing. Used to be many years ago, but not now. And also, World War II is something I dabble in. When I was younger, I did masses of World War II, not so much now. So it's absolutely fair that if someone wants more World War II stuff, hello, they're going to go somewhere else. And if you set up a Patreon, you have to develop a thick skin. You have to get used to the idea that, you know, it isn't just if I build it, they will come. You have to remember I've got 250 odd followers because I've been first of all, I've been in the industry since 1998 with my first Battlegames website. Battlegames magazine started in 2006, and then I was doing magazine editing for 10 years then, 2006 to 2016. And then I've also been doing the Patreon for 5 years now. And you know me, I've been a noisy bugger online. The View from the Veranda podcast with Neil Shuck, bless him. And I've been interviewed by lots of other people. And we'll come on to it. I've happened to have been lucky and written some successful books. So that has got me an audience that I've already developed elsewhere before I started doing a Patreon. Okay? And what you do on Patreon is entirely up to you, but I try to do a mixture of, there's just effectively blog posts, but there's also my Battle Chat podcasts, and patrons also get an exclusive little short half-hour off-the-cuff podcasts I'm doing as well. Some videos, some how-tos. I run some surveys. There's chat, and now Patreon's adding more features as well for chat and that kind of stuff. So Lord knows how I'm going to keep up. But doing a variety of things. And I think if you're more a monoculture kind of person, you just do videos or you just do blogging or whatever, you'd have to be very sure of your audience on coming to Patreon, right? I think, because I'm the kind of person who likes a variety of stuff, and I like the reason I'm doing it is because I want to be able to create a variety of stuff. And I haven't even mentioned my digital products, PDFs and bits and bobs that I sell through my PayHip shop that I'm pointing at. You can't see, right? So having a variety of stuff, I think, helps when you're doing a Patreon. Anyway, where are we? Got a couple have come up straight away there. Oh, I've gone back to. Can I go back? Oh no, 2 came up at once. Oh, I've got me slides mixed up a bit. Never mind. All right, writing. Hello. I've written some quite big books. Right, there they are. Over there. How am I pointing? I'm pointing like that. There's the books. There's the books. Right. That's another way to make money. What I learnt was that whilst at first it seemed lovely, oh wow, I've been published by a well-known, highly respected traditional publisher. What you earn is not a lot. Unless your book happens to be like a real kind of Jeffrey Archer, J.K. Rowling type bestseller. Maximum, and they're cutting back on this, maximum 10% royalties on sales, on the net sale price, isn't going to get you very far, isn't going to earn you a lot of money. All right? I've whinged at length about this elsewhere. I'm not going to do a send now, but I'm just going to send a warning shot across your bows that you may be really passionate. And I don't want to discourage anyone from writing. Au contraire. If you've got a real burning desire to write a book, you sit down and do it. And I will pat you on the back and cheer you to the rafters for doing it. Let me warn you, it's hard work. And particularly if you're trying to fit writing a book around the rest of your life, it is hard work. If you are in fact interested in writing a book, drop me a line, because man, I can give you some advice, right? But if you've never written a book before and you've got this dream that you want to write a book, that's fantastic. But you need a solid dose of reality as well about what it's actually like doing it, and then what happens afterwards. Because nowadays, whether you're traditionally published or self-published, it's 90% plus, if not all, of the marketing of that book, in other words, telling the world that it exists, will be done by you. It won't be done by the publishing company, because publishing companies have been cutting back on staff, and you better learn how to do your own marketing, which means get active on the social media, have a website, and. Okay? If you're self-publishing, obviously the whole job from start to finish is down to you. I'm very lucky because I've got the skill set that means I can do literally everything. So a book like the Martin Statt book, right? Like this, right? I wrote it, I illustrated it, I did the design and layout, I got hold of a couple of proofreaders, I did all the marketing for it, I actually uploaded the thing to Amazon, I made sure that all the technical details were correct before it went to press on Amazon, I checked the proofs when they came back, I pressed the green button to say go, and obviously then I'm doing all the marketing, telling you guys that, hey, my latest book exists, and that involves time on all those Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And so this is another thing you need to overcome, not just the embarrassment about talking about money. Your income from that thing is absolutely down to you. And pardon my French, but I'm damned if I'm going to be shy about the fact that I've produced a really good book. But it's hard graft. And that's another way, actually, it helps you to, when you realize, do you know what? I worked really hard at this. I deserve to be compensated for this. Why should I just give it away? Really bizarre, here's the thing. A really bizarre comment on an Amazon review recently was that somehow I'd kind of cynically stuffed the book full of illustrations just to justify the cover price. The logic behind that just blows my mind. Perhaps someone else can, explain it to me, but that's not how it works. You have to take really high account of the people who are likely to buy the book. Do your market research, check with them. Well, what is it you actually want to see in the book, and then deliver what they want to see in the book, and then produce the book. But obviously, this is something else you have to develop a thick skin about, is you start getting reviews, whether it's traditional or self-published. And the blunt fact is, some of those reviews are going to be lousy. It's just how the world is. Not everyone is your audience. And one of the things about stepping over that line and becoming a business is having to work out who your audience is, who's actually going to be prepared to pay for this stuff that I'm making, writing, drawing, painting, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't matter, writing a book is a spectacular example, but of course, look at our hobby. You might make, oh my God, you can sculpt the most exquisite 28mm miniatures. Someone who loves 15mm is going to go, meh, not interested. Even someone who prefers, I don't know, Perry Miniatures or Old Glory or whoever it happens to be is going to be, meh, no, not for me. I prefer these other ones. It's tough when you get those first not so great reviews. It's tough. You just have to suck it up and realize, well, that's a shame. That person just clearly wasn't my audience. Wasn't my true audience, and that's a shame. In this, to a certain extent, you kind of, I wish they'd read all the blurb, because if you're careful, like I am, you put out all the blurbs saying, oh, this is exactly what's in the book, and in this book, I did a video flick through page by page to show what was in it and everything. It's like, you can't please all the people all the time, right? And writing is hard work, whether it's traditional or self-publishing. The rewards from traditional publishing, I have got to tell you, are not huge, which is why I've switched to self-publishing, where at long last I feel like, okay, that was I put in a huge amount of effort, but that's what I'm earning from it. Okay, that's a better balance. It's not fantastic, but it's a better balance than it was when I was being traditionally published. I've already touched on it. Another thing, of course, you could do is actually start a Wargames product business, making figures, scenery, terrain mats, whatever it happens to be, widgets. I think of people like Litco making all the tokens and things like that. It's like, wow, that's a thing now. There are businesses existing making Wordlets, whatever, right? So a bit of lateral thinking about, where's there a gap? But this is another bit of advice here. Do not be scared to start a business in a sphere that's already popular. Because the clue is, it's already popular. If you think, I'm going to come up with something that's totally out of left field, the danger might be it has a customer base of one, right? It's, why are there so many chocolate bars in the world? Why do so many people write books? There's millions of books in the world. Who needs another book? There's always an audience for another book, right? There's always, and apparently there's always another audience for another 28mm Napoleonics range or whatever, right? So, but obviously, again, here we are, but take the seriousness with which you have to take these things. If you become a writer, this is a really serious step. The discipline it requires and the potential heartbreak. Writing is hard, right? Writing well. I mean, any old fool can sit there and just go blah, blah, blah. But actually proper writing where you're writing and editing and writing and editing and probably rewriting and editing and rewriting and editing and. I mean, I've got a friend who writes fiction actually, and she reckons she probably does 10 different drafts before she's happy at the end, right? That is not unusual. That is not unusual. Obviously, if you've got an academic background and you're used to the discipline of, you've written your PhD and you're writing professional papers, academic papers and that kind of stuff, hopefully that gives you a bit of a head start. But I'm quite certain that, if I was to talk to the Tony Pollards and Gary Sheffields and others of this world and say, all right, how many drafts for this? Oh yeah, probably 2 or 3, right, to get it right. And then, depending on the nature of the book, all the fact checking as well. Because the last thing you want is some greasy wargamer to pick up your book. I think you'll find that. Right. We know what that's like. So these, becoming a writer, an actual writer, or starting a Wargames product business, such as, pick your favorite figure manufacturer or whatever at random. It's serious stuff and hard work, and the marketing you need to put on, the ongoing marketing and sales and all that, and stock control and my premises. Look at what dear Leon at Pendraken's been going through in recent months. Wow. Hats off to you, Leon, for, taking a deep breath and ploughing through all those challenges you've had, mate. But because you will also say, yeah, that's not untypical. You're running a business. All these things are sent to challenges, even, a hole in the roof, whatever. Anyway, what have I got next? Let's have a look. Go over here and have a click. I don't know what's happened to me next. What's happened to me next slide? Let me go here. There should be another slide coming up here. So where are we? That's number 10. Oh, yes. I've got, and let me move my little screen. I'm going to move me, ladies and gentlemen. Other outside the box ideas, such as hosting online games, play by email campaigns, that kind of stuff. I've talked a lot about the obvious ones, but you might have a really quirky idea. Fantastic. Good luck. Make sure that you get some advice and opinions from others before you take it on, or make sure it's a kind of a zero cost thing that you can just try in a harmless way. I mean, for example, starting a Wargames magazine. What might I think about that? My final slide, ladies and gentlemen, right? I'm going to get back to just the slide only here. I've written this in red. If you're going to do any of these things, think about the hobby-business balance that this is going to create. Because I've got this as a lived experience, which is I turned my hobby into what I do for a living. Was that a great idea? I don't know. There have been moments when I thought, yes, this is amazing. This is fantastic. Gosh, my hobby is now what I do for a living. How fantastic is that? And there have been other times when I've gone, oh God, I wish I could just have my hobby back and not feel like I'm having to do stuff. Particularly when I was running the magazine, I had a lot of these moments. I do stuff and set up photos and stuff just because it might be useful for the magazine, just because I might need to write a filler article if I have a month where I'm short of decent articles, or just because it's expected of me. And of course, that's one thing, and I think Alex mentioned this when it comes to Patreon. It's possible, I've not suffered from it yet too much, but it can, of course, feel like, oh my God, these people are giving me money every month. I feel compelled, obligated to produce something for them on a regular basis, constantly. Now, as it happens, the reality has turned out to be slightly different, because some of you might be aware I had some pretty serious kind of health and mental health challenges in recent years. And my patrons were absolutely fantastic. Absolutely incredibly supportive, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but let me just say that my faith in human nature was restored to a very large extent because of my fantastic patrons. So what then comes along is, and I've done a hashtag at the end here, haven't I? Mental health. Just under here, you can see hashtag mental health, because I think many of us, I talk very openly about mental health, and some of my colleagues do in the hobby as well, which is fantastic, because there are aspects of this hobby, of the hobby itself, that are fantastic in terms of supporting our mental health. A lot of it is brilliant, cognitive behavioral therapy stuff, getting into flow, focusing on achieving things, even if they're just tiny things over time, and the social aspects, the research, the craft, an amazing hobby. It's an amazing hobby. But when you're in the hobby, running a business in the hobby, your attitude to a certain extent has to change, because you've got paying customers, and you do have to battle with this. Okay, what is reasonable? What is a reasonable amount that I feel I should be giving to my patrons on a regular basis? As it is, for example, with 5 years old now, I've got to go back, and this is something I'm going to be talking to my patrons. I've got to go back and realize that when I first started Patreon, completely naive, and I was an early adopter of Patreon, I way overpromised what I could give as kind of personalized gifts to incoming patrons. Oh yeah, I'll design all of you at that rank. I'll design you all an individual scenario, not realizing that 50 people would sign up at that level. So suddenly I've got this burden of coming up with 50 different individualized scenarios in potentially 50 different periods, some of which I've never played. This is just, I'm laughing about it now, but I am going to have to talk to my patrons about it. Be careful about what you promise, because it could end up being the straw that breaks the camel's back. But so long as you're realistic about it and you understand what you're doing, it can work out for you. But as I say, make sure you've already got an audience. There's one last thing that I realise I haven't put on here, is Kickstarter. Because Kickstarter is kind of brings in potentially several of these aspects that I've talked about, doesn't it? And we've all heard stories of amazingly successful Kickstarters, and we've also heard stories of completely disastrous Kickstarters. And this is one of those things, a bit like, I don't know why that's come up there. What's that all about? I don't want that. Sorry about that, folks. I'm doing this live, right? And I've rattled on for over an hour, as is my way. But Kickstarter is a thing all of itself that is a massive kind of undertaking that needs to be extremely carefully planned. It is not for the faint-hearted. Anyway, so that's almost going to need a video in itself, which I'll leave someone else to do who knows more about Kickstarter. But I would just say, obviously, it's another way, of course, that you can earn money through your hobby, but it could also completely take over your life. That's all I'm going to say, folks. I hope this overview has been helpful for you. I apologise. I've rambled on far too long. I've probably gone into much more detail than I intended to go into about some of these things. But on some of them, I've got quite a lot to say and quite a lot of experience. But I want to go back to thanking Big Lee and Alex for their much shorter videos, which are probably much more likely to be viewed through to the end. And I just hope that you found this interesting and informative. from my perspective of someone who's actually been involved in the hobby as a, running a business, having this weird thing as me as a business as well as me for quite a long time now. Yeah. So good luck. If you are thinking of doing something to earn money from your hobby, fantastic. Good luck to you. And as I say, if you're thinking of doing that writing a book thing, by all means drop me a line, and there's some directions I can point you in that I hope will be very helpful for you. All right, folks, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.